Hello, welcome to the first episode of the B-Pos podcast. My name is Mike McKim, and for the foreseeable future, I will be your host. My goal today is really to explain what the B-Pod podcast is, how it started, why I started it, and kind of the overall theme or general direction I want to take the podcast in. Hopefully you find it enjoyable, enlightening, maybe educational. So what is the genesis of the Bpos podcast? Well, on November 22nd, 2023, I lost my son, Connor McKim, First Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps. And anybody who has ever suffered a loss understands that there is a process, what they call a grief journey. And there's no playbook for that. There is no, I'm going to say loosely, there is no right and wrong. However, I will address that at one point. But it doesn't matter whether you've lost a pet that you were really fond of, whether you have lost a grandparent or a parent or a sibling, or in my case, a child. It's riddled with challenges, twists and turns, emotions that you've probably never experienced before in your life, thoughts you've probably never had before in your life. So over the past 4 months, I have been fortunate enough to spend time with a lot of really great people. I have an amazing support network around me. My family is, my rock for sure. And during the course of this, I'm learning something every single day. And immediately, I'm a podcast junkie. So when I started my grief journey, I went straight to the podcast world and I started downloading podcasts and listening to them. And while all of the podcasts have some sort of redeeming quality to them, I just couldn't find one that spoke directly to me. It was either, very spiritually focused, or it was, maybe a little paranormal for lack of a better term, but I really just couldn't find something that was a step-by-step experiential guide. So I'm hoping that's what I can bring with this podcast. Another piece to this puzzle, because Connor was an active duty Marine, we immediately had the full support of the United States Marine Corps. And we had a team assigned to us that came to us and I mean, I can't even describe how incredibly professional and empathetic and, look, they could not have done anything better. So shout out to the Marine Corps for the support. But they walked us through the process, everything preparing for the funeral and, programs that were available to us as a Gold Star family and things like that. Another catalyst for this, I had an incredibly difficult time writing Connor's eulogy. Obviously, it took me days. It was painful. I didn't want to do it. Emotionally, it was a huge challenge, but with the help of Rochelle and Cole and Riley, I was able to put something down. I wanted to make sure it was clear and concise and honored Connor and, didn't go off topic or ramble or anything like that, which, heads up, I have a tendency to do. After I delivered his eulogy, and I'm not exactly sure how I did it, but I got through it. 99% got through it. The last 1%, I tanked a little bit, but I threw out some questions, and the questions that I threw out there were, what would Connor expect us to do? What would he want us to do? And what could we do to honor him? What would make him proud? obviously, I told everybody that he would expect us to be sad. He would expect us to cry and grieve. And then he would want us to remember him, in a positive light and all the great things that he did. Um, and then what could we do to honor him or make him proud? And I just put that out there. That's a question that everybody has to answer themselves. But anyway, after the funeral, I had, people come up and shake my hand and hug me and tell me that it was beautiful and all that, which is great. But I think what really impacted me was the following days, I started receiving emails from people, and there were hundreds of people at Connor's funeral. I started receiving emails from people who genuinely took my words to heart, said that it impacted them in some way, said that they were reevaluating their lives because of it. Just simple words, right? And that was probably the first moment where I said to myself, wow, maybe words do matter. I wasn't thinking about doing a podcast at that point, but I think that's when the seed was planted. So, Bpos. What does that mean? As we as a family collected all Connor's personal stuff and went through pictures and all that, I was in charge of his military equipment. And there was one patch that he wore on his plate carrier. And, it had his last name and initials. It had his DOD number, his Department of Defense number. And then it had Bpos. Obviously, that's his blood type, B positive. And the reason it's like that, a lot of first responders and military will have, some sort of designator on their gear in case something catastrophic happens and they need blood immediately and are unconscious and can't tell you what their blood type is, or maybe they don't know what their blood type is or whatever. So Bpos was on his patch, and Rochelle had said, oh, that's so appropriate because Connor was such a positive person. So Bpos, in my mind is short for be positive. And when Rochelle pointed that out to me, it really hit me, because if I'm being totally honest, I'm having a hard time being positive about a lot of things. And I think that's understandable, and anybody in a similar position knows what I mean. But that little 4-letter word, let's just call it a 4-letter word, it means something. And so that's what the Bpos podcast is. So I'm sticking with it until somebody convinces me it needs to be something else. So the last thing that I'll throw out there is, I'm going to touch on a lot of topics. Like I said, things that I've learned. I have some really exciting guests lined up who have expertise in certain areas that have some sort of impact on the grief journey, or on the emotional state, or mental health, or, however you want to describe it, whatever the words are. I do want to put this disclaimer out there. I am not an expert on anything. I am not a medical doctor. I am not here to give people advice or tell them what to do. I'm not a role model. I'm probably one of the furthest things from a role model. I'm not trying to be an inspiration or a motivational speaker or anything like that. That's not what this is about. This is really about me, my journey, what I'm learning, and what I have learned. I want to share it, just like people have shared it with me. I feel like it's kind of my responsibility in a pay it forward kind of way. And look, if it does inspire somebody to do something, to be better, to reevaluate their life or make a positive change or something, that's great. That's an amazing byproduct. And I hope that happens. But the reality is I'm doing this because I have consistently felt pulled towards this direction. As much as I didn't want to do this, I just feel like I have to. I gotta follow this, and I don't know exactly where it's going to take me at this point. But what I do know is the experiences that I've had and the things that I've been shown, um, they've impacted me. And then when I've shared them with close friends, they have had some sort of impact on them. So, and look, it's part of my healing process. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for me. And if it helps somebody else, if there's somebody else that can relate to this, awesome. Well, I think that's kind of the Bpos podcast in a nutshell. Yeah, I hope you are intrigued, interested, and hey, if you want to take this journey with me, I'll be back. Okay, with that, I hope that I have been clear as mud on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And all I can say is just remember to Bpos.